So we'll first of all start with the Muslim inheritance law.
I recommend that for all my clients to have a bilingual document rather than an Arabic only, because then you can see what you have signed.
Because the distribution in as per Sharia law
Yep.
is very specific.
Yes, yeah. So
Can that distribution be altered now?
to put it in perspective, you're looking at a minimum cost of $30,000 to $40,000 dirhams, $10,000.
So there are two now aspects and there are two divisions. One is the inheritance law for the Muslims and one is the inheritance law for the segment for the non-Muslims. So we'll first of all start with the Muslim inheritance law. Now, all of us are very well aware that when you die as a Muslim, then the normal Sharia law applies to you. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. So the UAE's law is very clear on that. If you are a Muslim, okay, and again, coming back to the will, if you're an expat Muslim and you die with assets in the UAE, then those assets have to go through a court process, just like anywhere else, any other jurisdiction. I mean, most jurisdictions. Civil law countries have a different process. But you have to go through a court process where an order has to be issued declaring who your, again, successors are, your executor, your legal representative, who your beneficiaries are. These are all things, and each person's share has to be identified, okay? Under the
Sharia law.
Well, we say Sharia law, but it's actually the UAE personal status law, not the civil personal status law. The civil personal status law is newer and it caters to non-Muslims. Okay, and their right to have full control and powers to dispose of their assets upon death as per their wishes. For Muslims, the personal status law applies, unless an expat obviously has registered a will who is a Muslim with ADJD. So they are different. Registries have different.
ADJD is the Abu Dhabi
Judicial Department. Yes. So they are the ones currently registering wills for Muslims. Okay, nobody else is doing that at the moment, and all of the registries across the UAE, so the DIFC, the Dubai courts, and the ADJD as well, are doing registration of non-Muslim wills in accordance with the civil personal status law, which was recently issued.
So if for a Muslim, he can now, for example, if he can now also in that will, which is registered at ADJD, that he can also say, okay, now I want this distribution, because the distribution in as per Sharia law is very specific.
Yes, yeah. So
can that distribution be altered now under this?
Yes. So to further clarify, so we're talking about expat Muslims. Okay, only expat Muslims.
And this applies to all the assets, movable, immovable assets that they possess within the UAE.
Within the UAE, because
it does not. For example, we were talking about South Africa. I know South Africa does not have the Sharia or any sort of even the segment of Sharia in place.
Yes.
So if you are a Muslim and you're living in SA and something happens to you, then their civil law applies.
Yes.
Here, if you are, for example, a Muslim of South African nationality and you're living here, or any nationality, a Muslim living in UAE, and if you have a will registered at ADJD, then you can have the flexibility of the nominations and the flexibility of the segment of that asset to be given to a certain person, and that will be applicable. Am I right?
That is correct, and I mean it's a fairly recent development and something that I'm quite happy with. I mean, it shouldn't matter that I'm personally endorsing this aspect, but I've registered my will with the ADJD, and I'm quite happy with that. And I don't think there's a stronger endorsement, because I've been, dealing with will, succession, and inheritance in the UAE for more than 10 years now. So that's actually a very, good development, and it brings confidence to the investor community, which you will appreciate, because that's really what they want.
Definitely. Now, we have multiple options. One is ADJD, then is the Sharia, and then is the UAE Foundation. Can you just broadly tell me the difference between these three?
Yeah, so a foundation basically is you take all of your assets and you put it in a foundation, okay? There's certain rules and protocols to a foundation, but the foundation then deals with all of your assets. You can be a beneficiary of the foundation, so you could make yourself the sole beneficiary, perhaps, for example, of a foundation, and you can also be a chair or a council member on the foundation. And you could also be the founder. So it's really quite a robust, offering. And you can register your foundation with Abu Dhabi Global Market. You can register your foundation with the DIFC. They both have these foundation offerings there. And it's, look, I would say it's not for everyone, is one thing that I would say. If you have significant assets, portfolio, business concerns, complex succession requirements, then you need to get specific advice on whether a foundation works for you. So that's really what a foundation does. And then obviously we mentioned a Muslim and non-Muslim will. A non-Muslim will basically is...
Non-Muslim is like, we're going to deal it later.
Sure.
But there are three aspects for the Muslims. One is the Sharia. The second is the ADJD.
Yes.
And the third is the UAE Foundation. If they have certain amount, so UAE Foundation is something like you make a complete structure.
Yes, absolutely. So that's you have to create a structure, and you need to have various functions, very much like a will, but very active.
But
functions.
very active.
Yeah. And there's obviously costs attached to that. So it's not for everyone, because it costs, without getting into the costs, it does take a lot more to run a foundation and manage it and make sure the compliance for that foundation is squared away and dealt with, because it's a yearly renewal basis, much like a company license.
Yes, like a company license.
Yeah, like a holding company, but
so it's more or less like a group of companies, and you have the holding company, and then holding company is the mushroom that provides cover to all the companies. It's on those lines, right?
Yes, exactly.
So I know the costs keep on changing, but generally, on an average, for example, if a Muslim person has to make a will in ADJD, what's the average cost going to be?
Yeah, so if you want to register an ADJD will, then the ADJD charges 1,000 dirhams per will registration. And you obviously have to get legal translation done. I recommend that for all my clients, to have a bilingual document rather than an Arabic only, because then you can see what you have signed and what you have registered. And everybody else can see it as well if they see a copy of the will. So that makes things easier. So I'll always recommend that. So there are costs of translation, and attestation that happens before you register the will. So you're looking at a cost of minimum 6,000 to 7,000 dirhams, everything included. Including a professional advising you and drafting and considering your concerns, and then producing a will that caters to your needs. Now, foundation, to compare that, to put it in perspective, you're looking at a minimum cost of 30 to 40,000 dirhams, $10,000 approximately. But that can vary. I don't see anyone doing it for less. Where you
and then the costs may vary according to the assets you have and things you have.
Yeah, of course. I mean, if Elon Musk comes to me and says, "Hey, can you create a foundation for me?" then obviously he probably will have a lot of requirements in terms of the foundation structure, and I would obviously need to charge him accordingly.
I'm sure you will, buddy. I'm sure you will, and keep on dreaming. Any other aspect with respect to Muslims that you would like to address before we move on to the legal inheritance for the non-Muslims?
Yeah, I think that so for the Muslims, so you have options available, and it's totally it's doable. You can register with the ADJD. That is the only registry currently entertaining Muslims. And
that's ADJD because that's Abu Dhabi, but that's applicable throughout UAE?
Yeah, so all of the courts have MOUs. So if you get a succession order in Dubai, it is equally applicable in Abu Dhabi. There's an enforcement mechanism okay, which is not obviously, it's a process of getting the will executed. So now, I mean, it doesn't make sense, obviously, and you'll appreciate this, that if I have a villa in each of the 7 Emirates, I need to have 7 different wills.
No, it
So
doesn't make sense.
it wouldn't
You're
make
right.
sense, whether it's Muslim, non-Muslim, what have you. So a will registered anywhere in the UAE, in accordance with the rules and protocols, Muslim or non-Muslim, is acceptable everywhere else in the UAE.